Hi everyone, Gay Hawkins here, and thanks very much for the invitation to speak at this conference. Congratulations to Tricia and Sai for organising such a timely event. It's a real pleasure to be able to contribute and to be speaking to other academics and activists concerned about plastic, this very diverse and troubling material that has certainly preoccupied me and dominated my research for the last 10 years. What I want to talk about today is the complexities of governing plastic. That is, attempts to regulate and reduce its use, to control it. This is the focus in much of the political debate and activism in relation to plastics, and in lots of the discourse and discussion about the global crisis of plastics, its accumulation in environments and bodies around the world. And this is certainly a very warranted sort of political activism, but this dominant approach, which I thoroughly support, also has certain sort of problems and limitations. The main one is that it can blind us to the fact that we are also increasingly and profoundly governed by plastic. That is, we are under its control in the sense that we can't avoid it, it's infrastructural, it shapes our conducts in obvious and very subtle ways, and it has provoked very distinct forms of biopolitics that are reconfiguring how we understand life and its vital force. So in this paper, I want to shift between the idea of governing plastic and being governed by it. And this means that we need to take very seriously the idea that plastic is far from passive. I'm sure anyone that's involved in waste picking of plastic, recycling it, researching it, doing activism would accept that it is a very active and multiplicitous material with an incredibly diverse range of socio-technical functions and networks and realities that it creates. We are thoroughly entangled with plastic and by it. It's obviously not one thing. There are millions of different species of it, and it's materialized in many, many different ways and with different effects. Plastic makes worlds and modes of being. It shapes us as much as we shape it. In other words, while plastic provokes big P politics that are very human-centred and are very much about how can we control and regulate it, it also triggers ontological politics, which show us that the material has significant agency, that it is central in assembling new sorts of worlds, everyday practices and temporalities. And these ontological politics, I think, are much more attentive to the idea that political processes are more than human, and we have to pay really close attention to how plastic speaks and acts and demands our attention in certain ways. So as I've said, my talk is going to wrestle with the complexities of governing plastic and being governed by it, how these two dynamics interact. They're not opposite approaches to thinking about the politics of plastic. They are thoroughly mixed up. Materials and things aren't the tacit background to governing, but constitutive forces that shape how governing and politics are done. And the challenge here is to understand how plastic is governed and governed us and how it governs us, and how its constitutive forces in making worlds can be challenged and contested so we make better worlds with far less plastic. In the next slide, you'll see a quick summary of what I've just said, and the one after that, an itinerary of the outline of my talk.